Okay, so I know that in the last section I said that we would get into some tips and tricks, but before we get there, we have to talk about breath. And I labeled this slide conscious breath because we breathe all the time. That is a given. If we are alive, we're breathing. But having conscious breath is so, so important. On the inhale of our breath, it actually activates our sympathetic nervous system. So, the part of our nervous system that allows us to take action, to get motivated, and by the way, when in extreme cases, allows us to run for our lives, right? It allows us to activate that fight or flight. On the exhale of our breath, we actually activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So it allows us to relax. Our heart rate actually slows slightly. We release all that tension and allow our body to recover. And so, in every single breath that we take, we are activating one part of the nervous system or the other. I was in a class a while ago and heard the statistic that 50 to 80% of us have a breathing dysfunction. And I thought about it for a second and I thought, like, how is that possible? But there's definitely people that we know, maybe you or I have asthma or some other, more intense breathing dysfunction like COPD. But those actually make up a really small percentage of this group that we're talking about. This 50 to 80% of us that have a breathing dysfunction, it's actually hyperventilating. And again, when I heard this, I thought, like, there's no way that I hyperventilate. I am the one that's always not breathing. I actually find that I hold my breath a lot and then realize, oh no, I better take a breath. And then I gasp. And when I talked to the professor about this, he said, yes, when you are holding your breath, that is actually a sign that you hyperventilate because your body naturally knows that you've taken in too much oxygen, you have been breathing too much, and your body holds its breath to bring your oxygen level and the biochemistry of your blood back into a place that it wants to be. And so, what you do is you catch yourself holding your breath as a result of your hyperventilation. And then you gasp because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm holding my breath, and now you're hyperventilating again. And so it's this really challenging cycle that we get ourselves into when we are not actually embracing conscious breath. And when we're hyperventilating, what does that tell our bodies? What is the subtle signals that we are telling our bodies and sending to our nervous system? Well, if we're hyperventilating, then we're telling our bodies that we need to get prepared to run or we're preparing to fight, right? We're bringing extra oxygen into the body so that we are capable of doing something, some sort of output. And typically, what happens is that we are doing this and then we don't actually have an output for that extra oxygen or that extra energy that we're creating and building. And so then it feels really uncomfortable because we've built up this excess energy, this excess powerhouse in us, and then we just sit here. Maybe we're scrolling on our phone, and now we feel even more uncomfortable. It's why when we are feeling anxious or feeling uncomfortable, we always talk about going and exercising because that provides a release for this built up oxygen in our body, this built up energy and need to move, and ultimately ties back to our need for fight or flight. So, with conscious breath, we're able to break the cycle, and it is not complicated. It's not too much for us to take on at this stage. And what we do about this is that we slow our exhale. So we're going to bring awareness into the breath, and then we're going to slow the exhale. And in the next section, I'm going to have us walk through a brief exercise of just showing you through a few examples what it feels like to hyperventilate or move towards hyperventilation. We're going to move into box breathing or neutral breathing that kind of brings the body back into a balanced state between the two parts of our nervous system. And then we're going to slow the exhale. And in those 3 sections, you're going to be able to feel in your body the difference that breath has on how we feel. And it will take just a few minutes. And what's beautiful about this practice is that you can leverage this slow exhale anytime, any moment. It takes 1 or 2 breaths to have it kick into your system and take you from an agitated state to one that is much more calm. So immediately you'll have this tool to leverage either this even breathing or box breathing or the extended exhale to apply to your life. So without further ado, we can jump into it.